Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Third Banner Pod. I am your host, the Third Banner, also known as Kyle, since more people know me as the Third Banner around here than my actual name. And I have Josh, who he's been on a couple episodes in the past. Welcome back, Josh. And of course, we always have Ross. How are you all today?
Doing
Man,
well.
yeah,
Good.
doing good, man. Just got the grass cut, feeling the spring juices.
There
I
you
feel
go.
Feeling
you,
the
man.
spring juices.
There you go.
I'll tell you who else has been feeling the spring juices, and that's one Sir Jeff Brohm right now, who has just been knocking it out of the park. And I am happy that we get to lead with football. And it's no shade at basketball, but let's be honest, it seems pretty stressful these days to lead with basketball as opposed to football. So hello, Couch House, man. He joined. He was ready. Sorry, guys. We for anybody that does get on, we were a little late. I had some technical difficulties, but we trucked on through it. So hopefully we'll get a few more people to join with us here. I just shared the link out on Twitter and the Discord, so hopefully some of those guys will be joining us soon. But we're gonna go ahead and start with some football stuff. So recruiting wise, we got some big names coming up. We got some real big names, and I mean I've got my list here. Marcellus Williams visiting again, very high 4-star, borderline 5-star cornerback. And of course, he's from our favorite place, St. John Bosco, which seems to be the gift that keeps on giving lately. So I think we have a really good shot at landing Marcellus. And then we'll talk about some other high school guys, but some portal guys to keep an eye on in football. The one I want the most, I don't know. I'm going to ask you guys who you guys want the most, but we've got the guys I'm keeping an eye on the most right now are Keith Brown, linebacker out of Oregon, Matthew Wyckoff, Texas A&M, 320-pound offensive lineman. You've got Chaz Wallace, who we just found out we're interested in. He's a defensive tackle out of Old Dominion. We're going to have to go against Prime to land him, it sounds like. And then Cameron Kelly, UNC defensive back. Sounds like he's very strongly considering us after he committed to Virginia, decided to back out, and now he's back in the picture open again and strongly considering us. So that guy seems to be all over the place. But I don't know. I'm going to turn over to you guys. Out of those four, let's see, Keith Brown, that linebacker, Matthew Wyckoff, A&M, Chaz Wallace, defensive tackle, Old Dominion, Cameron Kelly, UNC defensive back that just left Virginia before he really even got there. Who out of those four are you guys most interested in? I'll start with you, Josh.
For me, it's got to be Keith Brown. I know what we have at the linebacker spot. There's something to be excited about. I mean, we got Stanquan Clark now. He's just a freshman, but I mean, he's so talented and so athletic. I think he just brings a lot to the table, but you really worry about depth there. So I think a guy like Keith Brown, who has that experience, that high-level experience, could come in and just make a huge impact. So he's the one I've really circled and really been keeping a close eye
on. For me, it's Wyckoff, the Texas A&M lineman. I always, I don't care what level of football it is, you always build in the trenches and build your way out. A run game, a passing game is nothing without a solid foundation of blocking, a solid blocking assignments, linemen that can do their job. So for me, it's him. He has a lot of experience as a freshman already. This past year, he was pretty highly rated. I think he's a guy that could, in the future, possibly be our center for years to come, but he could also be a guy that you can move and toggle in between the interior line positions and move him to either guard. So that's kind of where I'm at. I will say this, if we can keep Plummer upright this year, that dude's going to have a monster year. He's got so many weapons to throw to. The running backs are so deep. a lot of stuff is predicated off the play action and Brohm's playbook and the screen game. I will just say if Plummer can stay upright, we're going to be just fine. Like that, I went to open practice Friday. It was the first open practice I went to. And everything you've heard about him thus far is the absolute truth. Just his swagger, the way he moves, the way he sounds, that just everything. Everything about him is as a quarterback. I mean, he's just the guy. He's heads and shoulders above everybody else. So for me, it's Wyckoff. I think he's the most valuable piece there, especially coming from an SEC program. So that's where I would go.
Wyckoff is number 2 for me, and I'm with Josh. I'm gonna say Keith Brown is the guy I want, and a lot of that. I definitely do think we do need some more offensive line help, especially to keep Jack Plummer. We need to keep that man safe at all costs. We need to be like the Secret Service up in there protecting that man, because behind him we've got a lot of question marks, guys that can develop and grow, but probably question marks. So I do think that's important. But then I also look at the defense. We need at least one more linebacker, if not 2. And Keith Brown, Oregon does not want to lose this man. He's a top 100 high school player. He was starting to make an impact there. And last I remember, he was pushing for starter position this year. So I'm thinking, if we can land this guy, and it sounds like we have a really good chance. It sounds like we have a really good chance at Keith Brown. He's supposed to visit, I believe, tomorrow. He's supposed to start his visit. Yeah. And we just got to roll out the red carpet, man. But, yeah, I'd love to have Matthew Wyckoff. I feel like A&M fans are a little mixed on him, but has he performed up to his potential at A&M? No, he has not. But I also look at the injuries they had on the line, and he is a guy who was a tackle, and he was forced to play center because of all the injuries. And so he may have been out of position, and he's not going to have that problem here so long as Brian Hudson stays healthy. He's not going to be the center. So he can go into a more natural position. And when you are 6'6", 320 pounds with all the potential in the world, that's great. I mean, we'll take that every day. I mean, and that's the thing. We're no longer putting garden gnomes out there on the lines and saying that we're fast like we did under Skyline Scott Satterfield. We are actually rolling dudes out here, some beasts, some behemoth of men, and we are getting them on visits on the regular. That's the thing. It's just insane to me that we, I almost take it for granted. I take it for granted now, and it's only been, a year that we've been rolling these kind of guys into our program on a regular basis. And it's just like, I see a 3-star now, and I'm like, well, what's wrong? What's going on, man? Like,
for sure.
Like, is it, did we miss out on some dudes and have to settle for this? And that's obviously not the case. A 3-star guy can definitely be it. And we know that as a fan base, 3-star guy can be every bit as good as a 5-star guy in the right system with the right drive and the right potential. And maybe they flew under the radar, but I will say I'm just getting very used to these 4-stars and 5-stars at this point, lining up, visiting, and some of them are committing. It's not like we're just getting guys in here just to check it out for a day and leave. We're getting dudes. We are getting dudes. And I mean that we're getting guys that are just like genetic freaks. Like they come out of high school ready. And I mean, we're not used to that around here.
Yeah. I love getting honestly 3-star guys to guys that can have a lot of potential and a higher ceiling that you can develop. I love guys like that in positions and like at the O-line, particularly the defensive line, really in the trenches, you can really build a lot of depth, quality depth that way. And honestly, our best teams that's how we became good, is by growing it, and letting those guys being able to develop. I will say, we've become very somewhat jaded looking at other programs on U of L's campus, and we absolutely should not take visits for granted, because it shows how big getting a visit is, and the fact that we were one of the first ones to hit up Keith Brown, and he's already scheduled a visit. That is a big deal. He's coming all the way from the West Coast to take a visit to Louisville. Okay, and it certainly couldn't hurt that you have, Pierce Clarkson and Lole and some guys like that are already over here. And we've had West Coast guys in the past that have excelled here in the past, so with NIL coming around, and apparently the word is through the grapevine that there's some big things ahead for U of L's NIL with the 502 circle. It's the opportunities are here. Like, the days of regional recruiting and all that, that's a lot of that's going to be done. I don't want to say done, but you can get guys from all over the country now with NIL. Yeah. It is literally it's free agency. So Keith Brown would be a very big one. And I mean, if your name's Keith Brown, you have to be a linebacker, right?
Right.
Seems like it.
And a solid tackle as well.
Yeah, I mean, we had another 4-star linebacker in Keith Brown already under Charlie. Right. I mean, so
Ross does have a new background, Mikey.
Sure does.
That's true.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
Tron, good evening, sir. How are you?
What's up, Tron? I got to watch. Me and Tron went to practice. Me and Tron went to open practice last Friday. Yeah. We were definitely scoping things out. It was me, him, and his brother, and it's definitely good meeting him. Good peoples, man. So looking forward to Friday in the spring game. Can't wait to see actually who makes it here. Who's going to be in attendance. Hopefully we can get that second wave of rain to kind of hold off until after the game, or at least near the end of it.
That'd be nice.
And we can get some decent weather. So it'd be nice if it rained overnight.
So I'm bummed. My wife, in her infinite wisdom, she didn't do it on purpose, but she forgot that I was wanting to go to this spring game, and she switched her schedule, and so she's off Saturday, and she's like, good news, I'm off Saturday now, we can hang out, which that's always great news. I love hanging out with my wife, but the problem is there's nobody to watch the baby. So and I mean, the fact if it was sunny, I'd take the baby with me, but if it's going to be raining and a downpour, I don't want to take a 1-year-old who runs all over the place, and I won't have anybody else to watch her. So I'm bummed. She just didn't remember that I had this game. And I honestly, when she brought up switching, I wasn't thinking about the game either. And I didn't really give her an answer, but then, here we are. So hopefully it doesn't rain on you guys. I'm bummed I can't be there. I hope it's a big crowd. If it does rain, I hope it's minimal. The temperature doesn't look bad at all. So
no,
I'd love to be there, man.
Well, I mean, never say never, man. You could still possibly bring her to Uncle Ross. I mean, I'm good for a few minutes.
Like I said, if it wasn't raining the whole time, I'd bring her. But a 1-year-old in the pouring rain,
no.
And I live so far away. That's the thing too. It's not like I live 15 minutes away, so it's like an hour, 15 minutes away. Like I'm committed at that point. So it just sucks. It just sucks. If she wouldn't have picked up that or switched her shift, then she'd be watching the baby, and I could just go and hang out with you guys. But it is what it is. Couch House, the weather, from what I've seen, it looks like there's going to be two periods of rain. One right before the game, and like maybe during some of it, and then there's going to be a little bit of a break, and then it's going to rain at night. So it depends on exactly when that hits. But there's two. Long story short, there's going to be 2 periods of rainfall, and it could be during the game. I don't know. It's looking like it will be.
I got my frog togs. I will be just fine.
You hunkering down. Speaking of the spring game, so what are, from your guys' perspective, what are the players you're most excited to watch in the spring game? Because Ross and I were talking a little bit before we kicked off the podcast about, a new coach, spring game, like this is like Christmas morning, like this is what you look for, or you kind of circle on your calendar. Like I'm so excited to see the new team. So who are some guys that maybe you guys are excited about to either watch or hear about after the game?
All the receivers, man. I want to see it. Running backs too. I want to see the Wisconsin guy. I want to see what he brings to the table. We know what Jawar is going to bring us. He's going to bring us speed. He's going to bring us agility. I'm curious to see Maurice Turner, see how much improvement he's really made. I mean, I've been hearing really good things. More than anything, I feel like the quarterbacks and receivers, I'm really, really excited to see that. And I'd love to say I'm excited to see the defense as well, and I am. But there's just something about a Jet Brohm offense and the new quarterback and all the new receivers. I feel like it was almost a complete overhaul on that side of the ball, minus a few offensive linemen that are sticking around and the running backs for the most part. But it's not that I'm not excited about the defense, but when the first guys that come to my mind are Jack Plummer, the running backs, and the receivers, all the skill players on offense, and I want to see them light it up. I mean, I want to see a defense do well, but that's part of the problem of spring game. One's going to do well at the expense of the other. So it's like, was that really good offense or really bad defense? And either way, it's on your it's your team. So but it would be fun to watch. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I will say we got a little bit of news today from Brohm. He did say that the ones are going to go against the ones. So I think that's good. He gave an update. He said that he feels like maybe that the defense is maybe a little bit ahead of the offense right now. I will say that when I was at open practice Friday, the first string defensive line is noticeably they have an effect. They looked like in the practices that they were going against the second string offensive line a lot. The jump that they had off the ball was significant. Guys like Heron, the local kid that transferred in from Stanford for his last year here, he was really quick off the edge. What's his name? Gelati was just a man child. For me, I'm really looking at somebody like Lole because we expected so much for him in last year, and then for him to go down before the season even started, basically, and not get to see him. I'm ready to see what he can do. He's one that I'm really watching, that I will be watching on Friday. I think he's going to have a great year. Gelati, I think you're just going to see he's going to be lined up all over the defensive line. He's so versatile. He's so big. He's so fast. He's an absolute problem. I mean, he's probably going to be the star of this defense this year. Honest to God, like he will be the guy. So, I'm looking at those two on the defense. I think people are going to see some big runs by Maurice Turner. And I think guys like Kevin Coleman are going to flash. I think Jamari Thrash is going to impress a lot of people. He seems to be open a lot. And that's not any shade to the DBs at all. I like kind of what some of the stuff we were seeing from English and his defense when we were there last Friday. But Thrash has an extra, giddy up. He has the ability to create separation, and him and Plummer are due for just huge years. I can't understate that enough. I mean, when you see certain guys, there are two of them. They jump. Like everything about them, you're like, that's a football player. Like I can't even. That's all I can say. So I think as long as Thrash doesn't drop a lot of balls this year, huge year. So I think I've got some other guys I'm watching too, but to go back to the defensive line, Adonijah, the freshman that we got, the defensive end. What's his last name? Adonijah
Green.
Green, yeah. Dude was fast. I mean, I'm talking great acceleration off the ball, man. He's gonna be a potential just stud. I hope that I want people to watch him. I think that I'm rambling now, but Brohm said that a lot of the guys in the 2 and 3 deep are going to get a lot of reps come the spring game, come Friday. So those are going to be the types of players that you need to really watch. That means guys like Stanquan Clark, who Mark Ivey has talked about, saying, he's very talented. He's definitely going to get play, and as he gets up to speed, he's going to get more and more reps. Somebody like Stanquan Clark's going to get a lot of reps in the spring game. So I'm just really praying, and this is what I really like about this Jeff Brohm staff. Different approach from Satterfield and them. This staff believes in hitting, and they believe going 110% and scrimmage, and that's the way you get better. They don't tread lightly around anything. They bring intensity in the practice. It's real noticeable, very, very noticeable. So,
yeah, one guy I've heard that has just been tearing it up, honestly, is someone who Kyle is really close with, Brownlee.
Yeah.
I've heard the receivers can feel
really
the breath on the back of their neck, right? I've heard that he's just been like, Ross, again, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but like maybe it's the system change. He just seems to be so much more comfortable back there. And it's just somebody that a lot of people who have watched practice have told me is someone who's really standing out and has made a big jump since changing defenses. So he's somebody who I'd like to see how he stacks up in a game situation. Another guy who is still young, but, just has so much potential is Popeye. I'd like to see how he does, around the edge. And then on offense, I think you guys kind of already hit on all of it. Running backs are going to be a strength. Jaws was awesome last year. It almost seems like Maurice Turner has another gear, even above what he does. So really excited about them. I've heard Barclay has really done a good job of making a connection with those guys, and they have a really tight bond. So I think that's a unit that's going to be a big strength for us. And then obviously, being Louisville fans, we like to see the team score points. So Thrash, Coleman, we kind of already hit on those guys. I'm also excited to hear that Coleman's going to be returning kicks, which is something he did at Jackson State. So, I think he actually had a touchdown potentially and maybe a punt return.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to have a good return man back there as well.
Yeah. Since you hit on special teams, I will say if there's one thing I'm going to watch during the spring game as well, since you brought it up, it's the punt team. It's pretty rough right now. The punters are very inconsistent that we have right now. I trust in this staff to figure it out.
Didn't we get a guy that was supposed to go to UK? Am I misremembering that? And the dude could just boot it in high school.
I thought so.
Or did he not show up? I don't remember his name.
I think when Sat left, I was on record for this. The biggest loss of Sat leaving was losing Mark Vassett.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Vassett had the ability to absolutely flip a field. And it's not to say he didn't have some mediocre kicks last year. He did. But that dude had a huge leg. And
I wish I could remember that punter's name, but we were supposed to get a guy that's supposed to be a beast, but I guess he's not so far, at least. Couch House in the chat says, how did freshman William Foes look? A lot of people thought he'd be a sleeper, even as a 3 or 4 star. And before you guys answer that, Ross, I just want to say I'm with you, man. I remember his I've said I think he's going to end up being arguably the best player in the class. And I know that's a hot take considering some of the guys in the 23 class, but his film and watching him, he reminds me a lot of Devontae Parker. And I'm not normally a compared to former Louisville players, but as a first guy that popped in my head, I'm not sure if he's quite as fast as Devontae Parker was, but he uses his body and frame in a very similar way and high points the ball, or at least he did. And I don't know how he's looking, Ross, or if you noticed anything out of him or not.
Didn't see much of him on last Friday, to be completely honest. I think there was maybe a play or two where, he made a play. But, besides Thrash last week, you had Coleman and you had the other wide receiver, Galloway,
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Callaway, the Tennessee transfer, made numerous plays.
Really?
So, yeah, he did.
What about Hicks? What about Katarius Hicks? He do anything?
Saw him a little bit. He's fast. He's little. I wouldn't be surprised at some point, maybe we could see him on special teams returning some kicks, possibly. Never say never. That's the coaches are going to put the players in the position to contribute, and whoever's earning it. But he is fast. He's on the smaller side, but his speed was noticeable for sure.
What about Amari AHB? He do anything?
Didn't see much of him, but I will say today that Brohm did give an update on him and said that he's had a really good spring camp. So I think that's a very positive development, because we haven't heard a whole lot about him, and we expected him to really be somebody that he can be relied upon this year as one of the returning players as far as experience and leadership in that locker room. I think he's a really good kid. Everything points to that. He's a great locker room guy and seems to have a really great head on his shoulders. And he is a playmaker. I think if you can get him the ball in space, we saw it,
Yeah.
I think that, we could see a lot of potential for some bubble screens with him. I think Brom's going to go a lot of, Brown will probably go a lot of 4 wide receivers a lot at different times. So he's definitely going to see a lot of a field. He'll get a lot of reps. So I'm not worried about him at all. I'm a firm believer that the cream always rises to the top. And I think that as he gets a better understanding of this playbook and comes up to speed, and I think that he's gonna make his presence very known. I think he'll have a great season.
Cool. So Mikey says is Raising Cane sponsoring this show. No, Ty is not in here.
No.
Louisville Go Cards. How can I download some episodes? I have some travel coming up. These will be great. So we are on Spotify. Usually the next morning after this goes live, the next morning we get it out to Spotify, Apple, Google. Now Google takes a little bit of time. I don't know what's up with them, but it usually takes 2 days to get on Google. It's like they gotta go through all these things. I guess their process is much more rigorous. But any of those, Spotify, Apple, Google, we're on all 3 of those. So that being said, I'm trying to catch up in the chat, and I'm gonna let you go, Josh. Let's see. Canes is garbage. Discuss in depth. This is all day in Discord. It's Canes. It's either amazing or it sucks. And I've never had it. And at one time I was supposed to get it. Since I don't live down there, I live about an hour and 15 minutes north. I try to get down there and get it just to end this debate, because obviously my opinion is the only one that matters. That's a joke. But nonetheless, I did want to try it. I'm curious, but I did not get a chance to. So
listen, okay? I'll just tell you this. Canes is not inedible. It's not, okay? I'm just saying, when you're talking about fried chicken, I'm not taking Luke and his West Coast California vibe chicken to give me fried chicken. I grew up in the South. I know what fried chicken is supposed to taste like, and that stuff is plain. It has no flavor. All right, it just doesn't. There's not a lot there. I mean, when the cane sauce and the toast is better than what your main thing is you're serving, That to me, that's a
Yeah,
problem.
that's not good, man. That's like when I go to a pizza place and the best thing there is like the breadsticks. It's like that's good, but that's not what I came here for.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Couch House. What about the tight end position? Seems like it's up for grabs. We obviously know Jamari Johnson's going to be a beast.
Yeah.
The question is, how long will it take him? Now, we do have a guy coming in. Let's see. He's a Miami guy. What's his name? I do not
Kelly,
have him on my list. I meant to write him down. But we have a
Kelly,
guy from Miami. He was a 3-star guy who's supposed to be
isn't
coming
his last
in.
name Kelly?
No, that's Cameron Kelly. That's our UNC defensive back who committed, who transferred to Virginia, walked in the door and said, "Man, this place sucks," and re-entered the portal. So we can talk about him too. We can talk about Cameron Kelly now. UNC fans don't seem to be too bummed about losing him. Now he did get third team All ACC in 2021, but I've seen multiple UNC fans say that his interception numbers conflated that, and that he jumped a lot of routes. Kind of reminds me of watching Baltimore because of Lamar, and Marcus Peters drives me up a wall because people think he's great because he'll have a really good game, but then all of a sudden he'll get burned like 10 times just to get one interception. So
Tron says it's Brantley. That's the Miami tight end.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, no, I do know that we have a Miami player potentially coming to visit. I think
he's a tight end, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you have a player like that,
Khalil Brantley.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Tron. Appreciate it, man. I thought his first name was Khalil, but I was not going to say it. I wasn't going to say it with my chest because I wasn't confident.
Yeah.
But I did not remember his last name. So I thought I wrote him down. I meant to. So anyway, he's a guy who has not done a whole lot. Just hasn't done a whole lot at Miami, but it doesn't mean he can't come here. Better system, better fit for him. And so I'll be interested to see. I would have liked to get the guy that ended up going to Ole Miss, the guy that was at Memphis. I can't remember his name because he had a really weird name. But I remember looking at his film and thinking that he would be really good. He ended up going to Ole Miss on a visit right before he was supposed to visit us, committed to them. But Khalil Brantley, he's one that he keeps that Florida pipeline going. If we can turn around, give him a success or make him a success and give him a chance, and then he takes advantage of it, that would be great for a lot of the players down there because, he was at Miami first and he's from there. And so if they can't do it with him and then we get him and we can turn him into something, that'd be great.
Yeah, the opportunity is definitely there. I mean, I think Brohm's offense is a lot of the positions on the offensive side of the ball correlate and transcend to what the pro game is at the NFL level. So I think first and foremost, you really got to have a guy that has the size speed factor at the tight end position. I don't know. I think he's got decent size. I'll be honest. I don't know what his, strengths are or speed. But when you're looking at something like that, and you're coming into Brohm's offense to be a tight end, and you're going to be out on the field, and you're going to get a lot of reps to keep the defense honest. You've got to be a tight end that can block. And that really transcends into the pro game. But if you're a guy that can block, but also split out into the slot, and be a mismatch there, because you have that size speed factor, you have the ability to work the middle of the field and use your body to shade and make space. That's what it's all about. So hopefully I'm encouraged that somebody like that coming from Miami could be a great fit here. That's not always the case, but programs like Miami or, a lot of the relative blue bloods of college football, they're not taking a guy just to take a guy just because he's in your backyard. Miami has a bazillion guys in their backyard, and they're not taking them all. So.
All right. Tron asks, any chance we look at bringing in a quarterback to battle for the backup spot? I'll answer that with, I don't think so, because the problem is you've established Jack Plummer as your guy. So it's really hard to bring a guy in and say, "Hey, you want to be a backup quarterback?" Like, how's that sound? It's kind of like, nobody comes in wanting to be the backup quarterback unless they're a walk on, in which we already have that guy from Trinity, McElroy. So the other guys all want to be a starter. So like Pierce Clarkson, I mean, obviously he's willing to sit for a year and learn the system and grow, but he's ready at any moment. And then of course you got Brock Doman, who has had some experience. I mean, his goal is never to be the backup. He was in some of these guys are in positions, I guess, long story short, where they're not good enough to be a starter at a P5 program. So they ended up here when we didn't have a whole lot of quarterback depth, but I don't think anybody's going to come in knowing that Jack Plummer is the guy. Now, if you guys disagree with that, let me know. That's my opinion on if we go after a quarterback or not. I don't think we will.
No, I agree, Kyle. I don't think at this point it makes a lot of sense. As much as I would like to have another surefire guy back there, I think if Plummer goes down for any reason, we're in a decent amount of trouble. I mean, Doman's serviceable, and as is Evan Conley, but they're just not on the same level as Plummer. So while I wish that, like Tron said, I wish we could bring in another guy. I just don't know that, like you just mentioned, I don't know that there's a lot of playing time available, and it's like you're coming in to be second. I mean, nobody wants that position. So I do agree with that. Before we get back to the QB topic, though, Kyle, I did want to circle back to the William Foles story from our Discord, because it was just the best day. Like, he committed absolutely out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But I remember we were all like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Like,
We didn't think he was going to end up here because, I mean, think
we all
about
thought
it.
he was like a no-star out of nowhere, and then we watched his tape and we're like, "Okay."
No, I mean, he was a 4-star and he was a very coveted one, which made me think he wouldn't end up here. It just seems so weird because we never heard his name. We're all on all the premium message boards and all that, and we stay plugged in everywhere. We're obsessed with recruiting. We're obsessed.
Yeah.
So we hear names all the time, like all the time. We may only hear them once. We may hear them 100 times, but we never heard. I think he had a visit. I think he did have a visit several months before he committed, where he visited with a big group of people, and it was like, "Oh, by the way, he's here." And then we heard nothing, and everything pointed to Miami. But I'm pretty sure, if I remember with William Foles, I'm pretty sure Miami pissed him off. I think they slow played him a little bit, wanted him to come work out, and he said, "Well, I've already proven myself, and I'm in your backyard." And I think that was his mindset, based on reading some of his tweets when I was looking at, like, who is this guy? All that was going on. And I mean, I felt like at the time he impulsively said, "F this," and then just recruited, "I'm going to Louisville." And we were all like, whoa. And then I looked at his film and I'm like, holy shit, this dude's like Devontae Parker 2.0. And I was like, he's not going to end up here because he just came out of nowhere. I mean, and it was at a time where we were getting a lot of, the Bosco kids. And so it wasn't that we weren't good enough. It was just like, holy crap, this dude just like fell out of the sky. Boom. 4-star out of Florida, beast, just showed up out of nowhere. And so, yeah, that was an interesting time, Josh.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, and I remember we were all thinking, like, is it a grade issue? Because 4-star guys just don't commit like that out of nowhere.
Not out of nowhere like that.
And
that's just something weird. Last time we had that happen was Bowen in basketball. We know how that ended.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Pre-NIL, but nonetheless.
Right. No, well, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
I think I think you definitely hit it right on the head with Foles. I think that he did not appreciate getting slow played, and not made a priority, being that he was a hometown kid. Their loss is our game, and a 4-star. We all know a 4-star in Kentucky is way different from a 4-star in South Florida. The level of competition is just far, far better. So, that kid's got a lot more, he's got a lot more tape against top quality competition. Going back to the QB conversation, I will say this. I'm actually in disagreement with you all on the QB take. I'm in disagreement because what I touched on earlier, Brohm and this staff believe in getting the absolute best in competition, makes everything and makes everyone better. And that's the way that you get better is by competing. If you're reading the landscape politically, and also, any other way, Pierce Clarkson seems to be the heir apparent at the QB position coming up. But it is not Brahms or Brian Brohm. It's not any of their. It's not their mentality to just give a guy the keys. That's not how they operate. I don't think they're going to operate that way. And yeah, there's a political game that you got to play there, but they're not going to just give the keys to a player of any position, especially the QB position. They're going to make sure that they get talent here. Now, if I was a betting man, do we bring in another quarterback for this year? I'd say it's probably pretty hard. But if you were going to bring in one, I think the mold would be somebody that has probably 2 to 3 years left of eligibility. It hasn't quite worked out somewhere else, and they see the opportunity of where they could come in and possibly beat out a guy like Pierce Clarkson. And they're sold on the fact that it's going to be an open competition and, you've got your chance, and that's what we can guarantee you. So it could happen. I definitely think that they will try to get another guy. I'm just not convinced, if I was a betting man, that it's going to happen. But I don't expect them to just give the keys to anybody ever while they're here. That's just not how they operate. Speaking on the QB room, I will say that I think if I'm looking at Conley and I'm looking at Clarkson, and I'm looking at Doman, I think Conley's going to maybe surprise some people.
You're gonna keep throwing shade on my boy McElroy. We're just gonna
I'm sorry. I'm telling you right now, like the top
Future
three are
Stephon
Plummer.
McFords.
The
No,
top
I'm
three
kidding.
are
I don't even
the
know who
top
plays
three
this.
right now are Plummer, Doman, and Conley, and that there's a real toss up there with that second spot on the depth chart, and it's real obvious that Conley's competing. He seems reinvigorated to try to prove something, and I think the fact that he came back, like we've all heard that he wants to be a coach in the future. I feel that he's a smart player and he understands that, but he's trying to also maximize his potential. And I think that the kid has some really good speed. He is on the shorter side. So, I mean, that's something to watch. I did see a ball or two of his get batted down while he was taking reps last Friday. But again, he was going against the first string D line. But so some of that could be on the offensive line, but I think if you're looking for a player to watch in the QB depth chart, I think Pierce is going. The cream always rises to the top. In time, that's all going to work itself out, 100%. But right now, if you're looking at the spring game alone, watch Conley. That's the guy I think you need to watch. Behind Plummer. That's just me. I think the attitude and everything is there. And I could see Jeff Brohm being the creative guy that he is, trying to find ways to get him involved in some trick plays, honestly. I talked to Tron about that when we were watching. I think he's got a lot of mobility and versatility in that regard. He's a type of almost gadget player. It sounds stupid to think about like that, but I'm telling you, I'm just saying, don't be surprised if you see that stuff coming this year, like from having two QBs out on the field and seeing somebody like Conley out there helping facilitate. That's all I'm saying.
So we've touched a lot on the touched a lot on the football stuff, spring game coming up Friday. But we still do have a basketball team, and it's not always the same energy that we're packing when we discuss the basketball. But we do have a guy that is expected to visit, and he's kind of a guard. We'll put it that way. There's some debate, as usual, with a Kenny Payne guard. Is he a guard or is he a forward? And some people don't think there's a difference at all, but we're not going to go there. We will just say that former UMass guard/forward RJ Lewis is projected to visit Louisville, and he could very well commit. So if everything goes okay and both sides like what they hear, we could have another guard, air quotes, on the roster. He's not a point guard. I'm not going to entertain that debate. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it. If we want to call him a 2 guard, fine. I've seen enough people now that have watched a lot of his film. There's actually a Louisville recruiting Twitter account that I love to follow he's actually watched some of his games, and he says, he's a guy that can create some off the dribble. He can give you 2 or 3 good dribbles towards the basket, but he's a slasher type. He's not a distributor. He's not a initiator of the offense type of dude. So he's coming to visit. I don't dislike it. I think he could be a solid add. I think he's a upgrade compared to, last year we really didn't get any guards that were until we landed Fabio at the very end, which was patchwork. And I think he's an upgrade from that, certainly. So, and I think the potential's there. He is 6'7". Kenny Payne loves his tall guards. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Josh, what do you think about have you seen anything on this guy yet?
I haven't seen a whole lot on him. And, I would be I think he would be a solid add for us if we had another ball handler coming in, right? Like, that's the one thing I keep waiting for is, like, can we not just get somebody from, like, Colgate or any random, like, small college who's the starting point guard? Like, I don't care. I need a 12 points per game, like 4 or 5 assists a game type of guy. And I keep waiting for that. And it's not that it's no shade to Lewis. Like, I think he is a solid player and I think he could help us. But he's not a facilitator. Like, I don't know what Kenny Payne's aversion is to just getting a solid ball handler like McKnight. I think that was his name from Western. Like,
not McKnight. Yeah. We know that's not Kenny Payne's type, apparently.
Right. Like, that was such a slam dunk and, like, is exactly what we need. And for some reason, like, Kenny Payne's just like, oh, no.
Kenny Payne passed up an uncontested layup for a contested half-court jump shot.
Dang.
Double teamed.
Right.
That's what he did when he went after Minifield instead of McKnight. McKnight was the uncontested layup. Sure, you don't get quite the bang you do with a Keon Minifield, but you're also shooting from half court double team. Right. And he decided he wanted to take that shot instead of the uncontested layup. And
so, like, you saw with Christian Cunningham, like, we just need a serviceable guard. Like, Christian Cunningham wasn't like anything flashy, but I mean, he was a great
got the job done.
Ran the offense. Like, just get one of those. Just one.
Just one, man.
That's all I'm asking. So
I see the viewer numbers ticking down as we talk about basketball, and I see Couch House is asking why in the world do we switch gears to basketball. So I'm sorry, guys, we got to talk about basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely could have talked football longer for sure. I think that Josh is absolutely right. What he touched on earlier. Not to tail back, but I mean, the buzz is palpable around Brohm this first year spring game. I like the analogy of being a kid on Christmas Eve. Like, for the real football people, like, it's just a spring game, but there's stuff that you can see and you just want a taste of it. I mean, it's almost, it's you just want to.
It's already shifted. We led with football, so it's not like we led with football, not basketball, and we talked about football for 45 minutes. And as we get closer to the summer, it's going to be predominantly football. And then, of course, in the fall, it's going to be all football, just about. So we're getting there, but we got to touch on. We are a basketball school now. I'm a football first guy as well. That's my favorite sport. But we do. I mean, and we do have some updates. I mean, we got to visit. I mean, that's a big deal for basketball.
Right.
That's a huge deal for us. Like, I mean, I didn't even care who it was. I heard that we had a visitor coming, and I was like,
we'll take it.
Screw it, hired.
Well, and that's why I don't care what is said about this going forward. The fact that this staff showed that they prioritized this guy enough to get a visit, I think they're going to close. Like, I think this guy is going to be a Card. Okay,
hey,
so I think RJ will be a Cardinal. It's probably the most confident I am of any of the other guys that are floating out there right now until I see other guys schedule visits. We talked about it on the last pod. Like, you got to secure visits to get guys. You got to. The chances of you securing somebody without ever actually visiting campus, it does happen, but it's few and far between. It's a lot.
Well, and Kenny Payne got two portal visits until this one, and he landed both of them. So
correct.
I mean, he doesn't. Not much of a sample size we're working with here, but hey, who needs stats, right?
But it's because, again, though, you're right. But it's because they prioritize those kids beforehand, and they prioritize them enough to say, hey, we got to get you on campus. You need to come check us out. You got to come here. So, like, I think this kid's coming from UMass. Okay. Like, he's coming from up in New England. Like, it's a different vibe. Even if we are not the Louisville that we know that we can be and that we traditionally have been, like, a player like that is going to get down here and he's going to be like, holy hell, like, this is my spot. Like, so it does play into Kenny and the staff a little bit. They want guys that want to be Cards, So, like, I think that they seem to offer, when they get a good feeling about a kid, and that, Kenny's always been on record saying that he wants guys that want to be Cards first and foremost, and they want to play for the name on the front of the jersey more than NIL, more for the name on the back of the jersey, anything else, right? Like, I think once they kind of get that assurance, what I'm kind of picking up is that once they kind of get that assurance from a player, then they say, okay, come visit. Like, I want you to make sure that this is where you want to go. We want you to make sure that this is a good fit for you, which also plays into the Kenny Payne vibe. Like, he's a player first coach. Like, he doesn't want to put kids in a compromised position. So, like, I think that the fact that the kid's visiting, I would be shocked if he doesn't end up a Cardinal. And I'm 100% on board with him being on the team. But again, got to get a guy that can take pressure off Sky Clark. Just get somebody. Just get another predominant ball handler. Just one. I don't care if he's 5'10". Like, make him. Bring it.
Kenny Payne cares if he's 5'10".
Yeah, he does.
Oh, I know he does. We've seen it.
He'd probably take a 6'10" guard over a 5'10" guard. But Couch House says, do we miss on Mbako and a boss? So are we not going to land them? Is basically what he's asking. And man, I don't know. It doesn't sound very good on the Churchill boss front. You got creepy people that are messaging him in his inbox, and he's answering them. And I mean, maybe over there, the cultural difference, maybe it's not as weird because he's answering them, and it's still creepy, but it is information, and it's more than Kenny Payne's staff's going to give any of us. So, I mean, people are going the extra mile to figure out what's going on, I guess. So they're taking matters in their own creepy hands, and they're messaging Churchill boss, and he's telling them that, Kenny Payne has not set up a visit yet. And so as soon as Kenny sets up a visit, he'll visit. It sounds like he is being slow played. It sounds like Mbako is the one that we want. And this goes back to what we've said before. If you don't take the bird in hand, but I mean, I will say about a boss has had plenty of time to commit. He's had plenty of time to set the visit before Mbako was even involved. There was a time where, and he went to Ole Miss. He visited him first, and by all accounts, it sounds like we were in on Churchill Boss before Ole Miss, or at least we were recruiting him harder. And somehow he ended up, and it was a coach that was on his way out. Like everybody knew Kermit was going to get fired. So it was just a weird situation. It's like, why are you going to Ole Miss? So it's not quite like the Minifield McKnight thing where you had a bird in hand, really wanted to come. I mean, Churchill Boss has had time. That being said, it sounds to me like the last step is to set that visit with Churchill Boss, and he would visit, but we have not done that. And now the Mbaco's involved. And so you just hope, Kenny, I just hope, man. I hope you guys can do it, but this is dragging out pretty long for, everybody said, a week ago, like, hey, it's on. We're landing this guy. He's coming.
Yeah.
And I mean, Louisville Twitter did their typical oohs and ahs and their eyeballs and their cryptic BS. And I don't fall for that. I even sent out a tweet like, man, can we not just wait until we get something more concrete before you get everybody's hopes up about this guy? But we got that, and then it's been just radio silence. So it's pretty scary. And I think the longer it drags on, the less likely it is because there's more suitors. Obviously, we were first in line, which that's always risky. If you don't get him right off the bat, it seems like being first. It's like he already knows what you have to offer. So now he's looking at other places. He's like, well, what do you guys have to offer?
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, I came to my assumption, because that's all it is. It's just my opinion. It's an assumption based on what we saw last offseason and what we're seeing thus far. I think Kenny Payne and this staff, like, I feel like Nolan is our pitch guy, right? He goes out there and he sells the program. And then they look for a level of reciprocation from said player that they are pursuing. And if they see that, man, this kid is really like the real deal, he wants to be at Louisville, then Kenny Payne seems to really get involved in, like, he's the final answer guy and says, okay, let's make it happen. Let's get you here. But if they don't see that level of reciprocation, there's just like the recruitment never goes anywhere else. It doesn't seem like we chase guys a whole lot. You know what I'm saying? Which is problematic in the sense because that's what recruiting is. Like, these kids are the thing. They're the target that you're going after. They want to feel love. They want to feel that they're a priority. They want to be made a priority, and they want you to make them feel like they're the absolute must have, and that doesn't seem to correlate. Again, it's just my opinion, but that doesn't seem to be how this staff moves. Like, they're not going to chase you. They're not going to chase you. Like, and I just don't know how far that's going to get you. Like, I believe in Kenny Payne. I really do believe that he wants to build this back the right way, but there's going to have to be a change in philosophy. To me, it seems kind of stubborn to not. You were known as a recruiting guy. You got to know this. We're just three guys on a pod, and we know this. Okay.
Well, you know what I compare it to? I compare what we're doing right now to, okay, we used to be the IT program, obviously, or at least one of the top 5 or 6. And so it's like being this really hot girl in high school that everybody wanted. And all of a sudden, 10 years go by. Now you weigh 350 pounds, you're chain smoking, your voice is raspy, you're coughing up green mucus all the time. You got mouse traps on your neck. I mean, you just look like a hot soup sandwich. And you're coming in there and you're at the bar and you act like you're too good for the men. And you're like, so you throw them a line and you say, hey, what are you doing? And the man shows a little bit of reciprocation. And then all of a sudden you don't chase and you think you're hotter than you really are. And then you end up with nobody. And that's what we are. We're the former.
Hello?
Well, I think you froze up on us, Kyle. That punchline. He's really holding it. Yeah, I mean, I think his point holds true, right? Like, we're that former hot chick who's really just trying to act like every guy in the world still wants her, and it's like we're just not there. I mean, I think that's something that Nolan said early on. He's like, when I walk into a gym, people see Louisville and they go, "Oh, Louisville's here," and that's just not the case anymore. I mean, I don't think that that's true. I don't think anyone sees Louisville and is like, "Oh," like a high school kid. I'm not saying that a kid wouldn't want to be recruited by Louisville, but we don't have that same flair that he seems to be alluding to.
I mean, we seem to really, kid, you got to think about it in a level of perspective, right? Like a kid in that regard, as a teenager, like they're thinking anything in the past 3 or 4 years.
Right.
It's very like microwave, like society, microwave mindset. Like, what have you done for me recently? So like a kid isn't going to realize that Louisville has all of this opportunity until you get them here. So I don't know why we're not pitching, like why we're not, and maybe they are. Again, I mean, the staff probably is, but you need to be pursuing these kids harder. You need to, when I say pursuing them harder, you need to be pursuing harder for a visit. You need to be casting a wide net, and you need to be getting multiple visits. And you're going to start to see that when you do that, you're going to see that all these, you'll find the kids that want to be here. You'll be able to tell yourself, okay, this kid is a Louisville kid. He's the one that wants to be here. But you're not going to know that until you get them here. Like, you got to get visits. I don't agree with what appears to be the recruiting philosophy. I don't agree with it. And, I'm not paid millions of dollars, but I know if I was in that situation, I wouldn't be doing that. And I would be casting, we've seen what works at Louisville. We need to be selling kids, getting them to come in and see what we have to offer. And then if it is about, you want kids that are all about Louisville, you will find the kids that on their visit, they'll tell you their emotions, their actions, everything will tell you. Their body language will tell you, oh, this kid's a Louisville kid. They're gonna exude, like it's gonna come out. You're gonna see that. So just get kids on campus. Just get them here.
Well, and I think, Ross, I mean, if I'm a high-level player's dad, I mean, I'm going to try to get him a good NIL deal. I mean, I know that sounds like, oh, he's going like he's just after money, but like he could have an injury. I mean, anything can happen. And if I can set my son up to not have any college, like student loans, and he can also have a nice nest egg for when he starts his family or whatever, like, why would I not pursue that? So Kenny's talked about, how he does it, how he shies away possibly, he's been a little coy about NIL. And I think that's a really poor move in the current climate, because it's not anymore where, these kids are wrong to ask for money. I mean, that's just the way it is. Like, that's
he's gotten better. I think he's gotten better with his comments lately. And I mean, we've heard that we're trying to drop bags, but the thing about Keon Minifield is you should have known he had that in the bag, no pun intended, because as soon as Arkansas got involved, it was like you should have anticipated that passing on McKnight. But otherwise, we're not going to compete with Arkansas. I mean, they have an artillery of NIL offers lined up with the companies backing them right now. But otherwise, I'd say
that appears to be the
rumor. Maybe 10% of the top programs that we cannot compete with, and they're one of them. But other than that, hey, it's all fair game. And I think Kenny Payne's moved past the, I don't really want people that are about NIL, because I mean, that's not going to work anyway. I mean, think about it. I can really want to work for a company in my line of work and think they're great, but go ahead and offer me some chump change and pretend that money doesn't matter, and I'll just walk out. I mean, I'll finish the interview and be respectful, but I'm not even gonna forget about it, man. Like, I mean, it does matter. And this idea of, hey, we don't talk about money, we don't talk about NIL. Yeah, that's an old school mentality. Like, no, we may not have to talk about it very first thing, but we're going to talk about, like, in my line of work, we're going to have to talk about how much I'm going to make. We all have, lives to live, lifestyle choices, families to raise. And in these kids' cases, they want to get established because, I mean, yeah, of course, everybody wants to get to the NBA, but the statistical probability of even the best kids out of high school making the NBA are very slim. So get your bag, man, because, get your degree, get your bag. And at the very least, you are strapped and ready to roll into the real world. And hey, maybe you're one of those statistical anomalies and you make it to the NBA. But even then, it's like, well, you still want a bag until you get there. It's like, well, if you can get a bag and make the NBA down the road, or you can just make the NBA down the road, where you're going to choose to get the bag now as well. So I don't think NIL is the biggest issue personally anymore. I think it was at the beginning. I think we're past that. I just think, going 4-28, it's tough, man. And the portal is a dog eat dog world. And it's like, what in the world? If I'm going to be honest, I'm a sophomore, junior impact guard, and I've got all these programs lusting after me. And now the NIL is ramped up so much. I've bid everybody against each other, and now everybody's pretty much on even footing. So am I going to play for a school that is proven at least during my time, they've been proven as a young kid who has watched a program? And do I think they have a better chance of getting me to the league, or is it the guy who just went 4-28? My point isn't that we can't land these guys. I guess to piggyback off your point, Ross, and your point, Josh, is we have to try even harder than these other programs. I don't think we're trying as hard in some cases, at least from the outside looking in, which you could say, well, you're just being negative and you're assuming that. Well, again, the lack of transparency kind of puts us in a position where we have to guess what people are doing when no information comes out at all, and we're not having things given, like we're not having visits lined up. Now, RJ Lewis is a start, and it's like, that's great. But overall, this whole portal recruiting, it's been a lack of transparency, and then we have to make assumptions. And my assumption is that we are not recruiting as hard as some of these other guys. I feel like Arkansas just goes balls to the wall. And I mean, look how good they've been the last 3 years. Like they could argue like, hey, we wait for guys to come to us. Now, is that a good strategy? Will it work? No. But at least they are on the level ground where they can make such an asinine proclamation and at least have it be somewhat logical. Whereas us being like, yeah, well, we're just going to wait for guys to come to us. Like, bro, you just went 4-28. You better be crawling on your hands and knees on broken glass to get whoever the hell you got to get in here to change that.
Yeah.
And I just want more energy, man. Like, I want more energy in this program. I want a guy who coaches like his job is on the line, even if it's not. And I'm assuming his job is not on the line because he sure the hell doesn't act like it. He didn't change anybody on the staff. We've talked about that. So I'm not going to get into that on this podcast, only to say, he's not moving with any urgency. The energy, there is no energy. There is no juice. And I just saw an insight on the message boards. I just was on there scrolling, and a guy who's very connected to the program, and he just said there is zero juice in this program right now. Zero. And I guess I'm just sick of it, man. It's like, we at least bring the energy, man. And if you whip on some dudes in the portal after going 4-28, is it acceptable? No. But can I at least say, hey, he went down swinging. He gave it everything he had. I can say that. But if you're recruiting like this, or at least what you are perceived to be from a lot of the fan base, it's not working for me, man. You gotta give us more than that. And I'll sum that up with that.
I mean, Arkansas is clearly like, I don't want to say the obvious target, but like, there's been a lot of memes made about Muss and Arkansas, and they do seem to hit up every single player that goes in the portal. The trajectory of their program right now, they are ahead of where we are right now, and it's just because Muss has been there a little longer, so they've got a little bit of head start. It's not to say anything against Kenny or this staff, but they've got it rolling more right now, and they're continuing to still go after everybody. Like, they're making it known to players, like, we want you to come here. Like, again, like, it's the emphasis that they put on and what they put out is that we want you to be a guy that comes here. We're pursuing you. We're touching base. We're not waiting for you to come to us. We're coming to you. Like, that's
Right.
that's a human dynamic, like,
Yeah.
it's just like, you're showing the player that you're wanting them first before they're coming to you.
And you
Like,
have
that
to
kind of,
establish your program first before,
yeah.
you have to establish an identity before you can just, have guys knocking at your door.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, you need to be rolling out the red carpet and explaining why your program is the one. And I feel like we've got, like, you just assume you're the hottest person at the party and you're going to get whatever man you want. And then you don't even realize, like, oh my gosh, you have all these dime pieces in here you're competing with, and the dime pieces are on their hands and knees begging to take you home. And here we are sitting in the back corner, a dark, dimly lit corner where you can't even really see us. And we're chain smoking back there with mouse traps on our neck. And there we are, the University of Louisville basketball program. Hey, we're not going to come to you. We're not going to hit on you. We're only going to take people who deserve to be with me. I'm only going to let and then, like, passing up on these 8 out of 10s because I think I'm going to land a 10 out of 10 without even pursuing them. And meanwhile, all these hot, bona fide dime pieces are just fawning over you. Like, what the hell do you think we're going to do? I mean, come on, man. And that's just where I'm at. Like, go ahead and, have that mentality after you've established yourself is where I'm going. Like, we are not there yet. We're not there. And after what last season, we're definitely not there.
No, and like, you have a program like UConn and Hurley, they just won the national championship, and they're making it well known. Like, they're putting their name out there, like, they're hitting up multiple players. It's just like, I don't even know if it's being outworked. It's just that it's a difference in philosophy, and it's one that I don't feel like a lot of us maybe agree with. And to kind of piggyback on what you were saying earlier, Kyle, about transparency, the fact that we don't get a lot of transparency, but what we do here is always like the juice up front, like, oh man, we're hot and heavy on this dude, and there's things to be said about where those leaks are coming from within the staff, but it seems like we make it really well known that we're really interested in this player per se, but then, like, nothing ever develops past that, ever. It's very few and far between. And, I would be, we need to be making it well known to a lot of kids that we want you here. And I just think that we need to have a change in philosophy. Again, this staff knows more than I ever will, and they're more privy to a lot of stuff, and they're paid to do this. But this philosophy just doesn't seem to provide a lot of results when it doesn't even translate to a large amount of visits. Like, visits matter. Like, I'm sorry, they do. We didn't get a visit with Tyler Perry, and we're not on his Final Four now. I mean, what can you say? Like, you got to get visits. We talked about it. We've talked about this a lot. Get visits.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, at least we're getting one visit, so that's a start. That is a good start, and we will follow that. Nonetheless, I am really excited overall. The overall podcast centered around football, and so we're starting to switch gears. And so spring game is Friday. Wish I could be there. Like I said, my plans got changed. But Ross, this time next week on the next podcast, I'm hoping you have a lot of good updates from spring game for us. I think we do probably have to wrap it up. It's getting late. It's about 10:30 right now for podcast listeners later. So that being said, do you guys have any final thoughts on anything related to either football or basketball quickly?
Go ahead, Josh.
Josh, mic's off.
Mute. So I was just gonna say my sleeper for the spring game this weekend. If I had to pick one, I would say Jarvis Brownlee. He's not much of a sleeper if you've been paying attention, but if you watched last year, he was solid but serviceable. I think this year we're just going to see like a stud back there. So he would be my pick for somebody I'm looking for in the spring game. I'm excited to see the new team. Like we mentioned earlier, it's like a kid on Christmas morning. I'm excited to see a Jeff Brohm spring game, something we didn't get from Satterfield. So excited to see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, I meant to bring this up earlier. Since you brought up Brownlee, I'll just talk about it real quick. Like, I think a lot of the positive updates that we're getting from Brownlee might be for the fact that the scheme that English wants to run with a 4-2-5, like, may benefit Brownlee a little bit better, knowing he's got it allows him to maybe take a little bit more risk, knowing that there's somebody else behind him, because like we saw last year, like Brownlee is not the best coverage guy. I will say that he seems to have an extra, I don't know, he just seems more confident moving around out there this year. So, I will definitely watch that. I don't really have anything that I'm particularly watching that I haven't already mentioned. Like, I think you need to watch a guy like Conley or something. I mean, if I'm taking a stab in, not in the dark, but if I'm looking at stuff like that, that's somebody like I'm gonna watch. I think our secondary is gonna be just fine. I think MJ Griffin back at safety is a guy that you're going to see that the staff's going to move around a lot. You're going to see him covering a lot more in coverage than you're probably used to last year. But he's another guy that is he's too good to keep off the field. I think a lot of fans that are going to come out are going to be pleasantly surprised about what they see. I will say that the team looks noticeably faster. The speed upgrade is definitely there, and I like the intensity. The intensity in practice is noticeable from Sat from last year and what we've been used to. So
right on. Can't wait to see it. Josh, my sleeper is Nathan McElroy, the prince that was promised.
There you go.
Prince that was promised a quarterback, the one true, he will grow up to be the one true king. All right. That being said, no, on a serious note, cannot wait. I'm going to watch the spring game. Now that I can't go, I'm going to watch it on the ESPN app, I guess the ACC Plus network, through the ESPN app for anybody that is unfortunately tied up. Thanks to my lovely
or out of
wife.
town.
Lives in Iowa.
lives in Iowa. So it will be on AC, but try to get out there if you can. If you don't have a wife that picks up a shift at the last second, switches her days, leaving you with your baby, try to get out there. It should be a really good time. Bring an umbrella and a poncho if needed. We have some really good recruits coming in. So that's something that we really, the more people there, the merrier, the better for us. That being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications for the Third Banner Pod. If you like what you hear, we will be on Spotify. We will release that tomorrow. We'll be on Apple. We'll be on Google. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and wish everybody a good night. Till next time, go Cards.
See you guys.
Go Cards, baby.
Yeah.